Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to shoot lots and lots of guns. Most of the guns I've shot have all functioned flawlessly. Typically, the guns that I shoot, and when this is most of the guns I shoot, have been loaned to me, and those are of course typically great guns that friends might own that they love, or at SHOT Show. And of course, when you go to media day at the range, they get the best of the best out, and you know, of course all those guns are firing flawlessly typically. But there's some guns that I've owned that are just terrible guns, really awful guns. And you know, of course, you can't trust a gun. If I can't trust a gun, it's awful in my opinion. Now, what I mean by trust is failures to fire, misfeeds, maybe accidental misfires, or if that particular gun has a history of having issues from other people, I tend to get rid of those guns. Those tend to be the guns that, in my opinion, these are the worst guns. You don't want these guns. So this is the top 10 list of the worst guns that I've ever owned. Now, I'd also like to address that I do understand that there are lemons, and there's many guns on this list that you're going to go, my goodness, how could you say that's a bad gun? There's many guns on this list that I guarantee many of you are going to strongly disagree. But I have my reasons. Might be because I just happen to get a lemon. But if something's just going to fail over and over again, I don't care if yours runs great. Mine was terrible, so I don't trust that gun, and it makes the top 10 worst gun lists. Number 1, the new Walther PPK in 22 LR. This gun I had high hopes on. Love the Walther PPK. Love the idea of having it in 22 LR. The Walther PPK in 22 LR is also made in Germany, whereas in the 380 is made in the United States. Now here's what I hated about the gun. It constantly failed, constantly misfired, constantly failed to eject. And in the end, when I also compared it to the 380 that was made in the US, you could just look at the two guns and you could tell the one that's made in the US is a much, much nicer gun than that terrible gun, that 22 LR made in Germany. Growing up, my older brother's all-time favorite gun was the Walther PPK. So when I saw this gun come out, and it was from Walther, from Germany, and it was such a big letdown, I literally made a video. This gun was so terrible, I want an apology. Primarily because it's almost like they smeared the Walther PPK name with this pistol. Number 2, the Fightlight Raider pistol. When I first saw this pistol at SHOT Show, I fell in love with this pistol. The idea of the Fightlight Raider pistol is, in my opinion, about as good as it gets. If you're looking for a close quarter combat, truck gun, that kind of thing, the Fightlight Raider pistol was perfect. And firing at SHOT Show, it also fired perfect. But when I finally got a hold of one, it failed. I'd say every third shot failed, if not every shot failed. Failing to eject. Bullets getting so incredibly jammed in there that I literally had to take the gun apart for over an hour just to get a round out of it. That's been my experience with this Fightlight Raider pistol. Very disappointed. Definitely one of the worst guns I've ever owned. Number 3. Here comes the strong disagreements. The Sig Sauer P938. Now, of course, many of you are saying, oh my goodness, the Sig Sauer P938 is wildly popular. People all around the world love this gun. Yes, but the problem with the P938 is the earlier models, they used the feed ramp from the 380, which was made before the 938. Because of that, and the particular 938 that I owned, that was an example of it. It had failure after failure after failure. This particular gun had a bullet so jammed in it that I actually had to take it to a gunsmith to get it out. I couldn't get it out. I could definitely not make it through a magazine without a failure, but typically I couldn't make it 3 rounds without a failure. Again, you know, I know a lot of people are going to say the Sig P938 is their favorite gun. It's the greatest. Everybody loves this gun, has been loving this gun, but it depends on when it was made. Those earlier ones are just awful, and that happens to be one of the worst guns I've ever owned. Now, I have fired a lot of P938s after that, and they ran great, but that one was the worst gun I ever owned. Number 4, an Ordinance AK. This was the very first AK I ever owned. It was extremely affordable, and of course, oftentimes you get what you pay for. However, there's manufacturers around the world like Taurus who makes very affordable, very good firearms. So I don't want to always say because it's affordable that means it's terrible. I strongly disagree with that statement. This gun was affordable and it was terrible. Constantly failed. After the very first day on the range with this gun, I got rid of it. Number 5, the Ruger LCP2 in 22 LR. Now, I actually regret a lot of the videos I made about the Ruger LCP2 in 22 LR because when I first started firing it, I was having a lot of failures. I oiled the crud out of it, and then it ran really well. So I again had high hopes. However, as time went by, after I made videos on it, it just failed, constantly failing. I could not ever get through a magazine without the Ruger LCP2 failing to eject, failing to cycle, failing to fire, light primer strikes, all sorts of problems with this handgun. Again, I loved the idea of it, and I had high hopes, but it turned out to be one of the worst guns I've ever owned. Number 6, Keltech Sub2000 in 9mm. Again, I'm sure a lot of you are saying, oh my gosh, I love the Keltech Sub2000 in 9mm. I like the idea of it too. Problem was, the Keltech Sub2000, I did have the first generation of it, but it always failed. It failed, and it failed, and it failed, and I love that gun, and I wanted it to work so bad. And I called Keltech, and they said, we'll cycle about 500 rounds, which today would be kind of like saying, well, throw $500 at it. But at the time, I had a lot of ammo, and it was still affordable, so I did. I cycled 500 rounds, and it did loosen it up a bit, but it still was failing. And again, if you can't trust it, then I'm definitely not going to use it. I'm definitely not going to keep it. The guns that I'm going to defend my life, defend my family with, they need to function 100% of the time. So this Sub2000 had to go. Number 7, here comes another one. As soon as I say what this gun is, many of you are going to be up in arms about how incredibly wrong I am on this. But again, this is the one I've owned, and that's the Remington 700. Now, you know, the Remington 700 is probably the most popular bolt rifle right now. Everybody seems to want to get a hold of a Remington 700, and I know people that have like 50 Remington 700s, and they love them all. This one, not so much. This was a bull barrel in 223, but the problem that I have is if you look inside the bolt of all Remington 700s is the firing pin is contained within a spring. And if the end of that spring is bent at all, it will scratch and grab a hold of the inside of the bolt, which means it'll give you soft primer strikes over and over and over again. And then once you realize what the problem was, the inside of your bolt's already scratched up. You know, yeah, you can bend it back and it will work, but you know, again, you shouldn't have to go through that for a Remington 700. So after I got rid of that Remington 700, I never replaced it with another Remington 700. Number 8, a Sig Sauer P320. Now, again, this is probably another one that everybody's going to start going off on. You know, in addition, it's probably one of the best-selling semi-automatic pistols right now. But for me, I bought one of the very first Sig P320s that came out because I had been carrying the Sig P250 for years up until the introduction of the Sig P320. It was, in my opinion, one of the best semi-automatic pistols I've ever owned. Had a fantastic double-action trigger, extremely accurate, wonderful gun. But once I felt that striker-fired trigger on the P320, what I realized was it's the same gun, but with a better trigger. Now, here's why I call it the worst gun I've ever owned. Never had a problem with it. Ended up owning 3 Sig P320s, but once they started having the drop issue, I wouldn't carry it. I mean, you know, and people say, well, don't drop your gun. Well, you know, I was a science teacher before I made YouTube videos, and I'd always tell students in labs, if a human does it, there's going to be an error. You can't say that you can guarantee you'll never drop your gun. And this just wasn't an option for me. So I got rid of all my P320s. Now, I know Sig has fixed it. However, for some reason, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit from police around the country who have had their Sig P320s go off just in their holster. So there's no way I would ever carry a Sig P320. Again, I know a lot of you disagree. You say, my Sig P320 is perfect, never had a problem, I don't drop my guns. I hear you. But if I don't trust it, I'm not going to carry it. I'm definitely not going to trust a gun that might go off in my holster or might go off if I dropped it. It, in my opinion, becomes the worst gun I've ever owned. Number 9. The Fenix 22LR. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are like, well, finally you're naming a gun that we all know is terrible. But, you know, mine was terrible, and this is finally a gun that probably all of you will say, well, mine too. Except I'm sure there's a few of you out there that like the Fenix 22LR, and I like the idea of it. It was extremely affordable, and it's very small, lightweight 22LR, but, you know, it's got to work. And what I was having was failures to eject and light primer strikes and, you know, the usual suspects in terrible semi-automatic 22LRs. But this it wasn't the worst. The Walther and the Ruger were the worst. It was better than them. I will say it was better than Walther and Ruger, but it was terrible. I wouldn't carry it. That I do know. And finally, number 10, the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport. Now, before you start going, what, not that one too, I did love that rifle. It was a great rifle. Early on, I did a lot of videos on it, but what I regret about it was shortly after I bought it, they came out with the Sport 2. And that's what I regret about it. It didn't have a dust cover or a forward assist. So I'd like to kind of throw in that at this moment, that I believe that all ARs need a forward assist and a dust cover. You know, especially if you're in a combat situation, or if you've just been using your rifle a lot, you're going to need a dust cover and a forward assist. And the reality of not putting it on there is it just makes you wish you had that on there. I ended up getting rid of it and got the Smith & Wesson MP Sport 2, which is the same gun, just with a forward assist and dust cover as far as I know. Now, with that being said, again, I just want to say, you know, any AR that isn't consistent with, you know, either military grade or better, I think you're buying something that you probably shouldn't mess with, I guess is what I'm getting at. So there you go. There's my top 10 list of the worst guns I've ever owned. Now again, I apologize I'm sure this list offended most of you, because a lot of the guns on this list are some of the most popular guns right now. I'm just being honest. This is my experience that I've had with these guns, and if they run like garbage, they're the worst guns I've ever owned. If I think that it's going to misfire or fail, you know, again, I'm not going to own it. And it's not just me being paranoid. It's lawsuits all around the country popping up every single month. So, you know, Google it. So there you go. There's my top 10 list. Just trying to be honest. A lot of people watch this channel to see, you know, like I want to know, is this a good gun? And I just want to be honest with you that these are guns that I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hateful messages. That's okay. I said that at the beginning. I knew that would happen. But out of all the guns I've ever owned, these 10 are definitely the worst. Love to hear what your worst are. Love to hear any disagreements or agreements. If you had problems with some of these guns that everybody seems to love, put that below too. Love to hear some insight on that. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel to Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.